The church doors closed with a soft echo that sounded louder than it should have, and in that moment everyone noticed him because he was the only one who came alone, the only empty space beside a neatly pressed suit, the only guest who kept his hands folded as if holding himself together. Daniel Mercer sat in the third row, eyes lowered, shoulders tight, feeling the weight of 100 quiet judgments even though no one had said a word. Weddings were supposed to be full of whispers and smiles and shared glances, but for him, the air felt heavy, almost accusing, as if the walls themselves knew he did not belong here the way others did. He had nearly turned back at the door, nearly convinced himself that watching the woman he once loved marry another man would finally finish breaking what years of loss and regret had already cracked. Before the story truly begins, take a second and let me ask you this: if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of people showing up for one another when it matters most, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because stories like this live through the hearts they touch. Daniel had not always been the man who arrived alone. Once, years ago, he was the kind of person who filled rooms with laughter, who carried grocery bags for neighbors without being asked, who dreamed out loud about the future as if it were guaranteed. But life had a way of rearranging certainty. His marriage had collapsed slowly, not with a single dramatic moment but with 1,000 small silences, missed dinners, and unspoken disappointments, until one day his wife packed her things and left a note that said she needed more than he could give. The divorce was followed by layoffs at the factory, then months of rejection letters, then the quiet humiliation of moving into a small rented house on a street where everyone already seemed to know everyone else. That was where he met Thomas Reed, the neighbor next door, a widower with silver in his hair and a habit of watering his plants every evening like a ritual of patience. They were not friends at first, just two men exchanging polite nods, until one winter night when Daniel's power went out and Thomas knocked on his door with a lantern and an extension cord, and something unspoken but solid began to form between them. The bride today was Emily Carter, and loving her had once felt like a second chance at life. She had met Daniel during his rebuilding years, when hope came in small pieces, and she had loved him with a gentleness that both healed and frightened him. He wanted to be whole for her, wanted to offer certainty instead of struggle, but old fears do not vanish just because love knocks louder. When Emily was offered a job in another city, Daniel hesitated, afraid of starting over again, afraid of failing again, and that hesitation slowly became distance. Emily waited, then eventually stopped waiting, and when she met someone who was ready without fear, she let go. The invitation to the wedding arrived months later, unexpected and painfully respectful, and Daniel told himself he would not go, then told himself he owed it to both of them to show up as proof that love could end without hatred. So he came alone, heart pounding, knowing he would leave with nothing but memories. As the ceremony unfolded, Daniel stared at the stained glass windows, their colors bleeding into one another like time itself, and tried to breathe through the ache in his chest. He felt small, invisible, except for the way loneliness magnifies itself in crowds. What he did not know was that someone else was watching him, someone who had noticed the empty seat, the way Daniel flinched whenever applause erupted, the way he kept swallowing as if words were stuck in his throat. Thomas Reed sat near the back, invited not because he knew the bride well, but because he believed in showing up for the people life tested, and Daniel had been one of those people. Thomas had seen Daniel's worst days, the nights he sat on the porch staring into nothing, the mornings he forced himself to smile before going to another interview, the quiet dignity with which he kept moving forward. When the officiant reached the moment meant to celebrate love and commitment, something shifted in the room, an unspoken tension that traveled like electricity. Thomas stood up slowly, not with anger or interruption, but with the steady calm of a man who had buried a wife and learned what regret truly cost. He did not look at the bride or the groom, but at Daniel, and in doing so, he drew every eye in the room away from the altar. Without raising his voice, Thomas redirected the moment, reminding everyone present, not through speech but through presence, that love does not always end in marriage, that the courage to attend a wedding alone can be as profound as the courage to say vows. His stance was a quiet declaration that Daniel's pain mattered, that his story was not one of failure but of endurance. The room fell silent, not awkwardly, but reverently, as if everyone suddenly understood they were witnessing something rare and human. Daniel felt something inside him crack open, not with sorrow, but with relief. For the first time in years, he did not feel ashamed of where he stood in life. He saw his struggles reflected not as weaknesses, but as chapters that had shaped him. Emily noticed too, and though she did not turn away from her future, she offered Daniel a smile that held gratitude instead of guilt. The ceremony continued, but it was changed, softened, infused with a reminder that love leaves echoes, and those echoes deserve respect. Afterward, guests approached Daniel not with pity, but with warmth, telling him quietly that his presence had meant something, that his bravery had been felt. In the weeks that followed, Daniel's life did not transform overnight, but something inside him did. He stopped measuring himself by what he had lost and began valuing what he had survived. He volunteered at a local shelter, helped Thomas fix up old furniture to donate, and eventually found work mentoring young apprentices at a technical school, sharing not just skills but resilience. The wedding became a turning point not because of heartbreak, but because someone chose to stand beside him when he felt most alone. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and leave a comment, because your engagement helps stories of quiet courage reach others who might be struggling in silence. Just before we end, I have one special request for you. Comment below and tell us about a moment when someone unexpectedly stood up for you or when you wished someone had, because those stories matter more than we realize. Daniel never forgot that day, not for the pain it held, but for the grace that rose from it, the reminder that sometimes healing begins not when love returns, but when dignity is restored, and a single act of kindness shifts the direction of a life forever.